exactly 24 hours before fire rained from heaven and wiped 2 cities off the map. The people inside them were eating dinner, closing business deals, and planning for tomorrow. Sodom was not a dark, miserable slum. It was a thriving, highly organized metropolis, sitting in a valley so lush it was compared to the garden of the Lord. The sun beat down on its wide streets, and the city breathed with the confidence of a civilization at the absolute height of its economic power. Modern culture usually assumes that this city burned purely because of its sexual transgressions, but the ancient texts detail a societal sickness that is far more relatable and far more terrifying than a simple list of illicit behaviors. The countdown begins 18 hours before the destruction, on a quiet hillside miles away. Here, the patriarch Abraham sits in the oppressive heat of the midday sun. When 3 strangers approach his tent, he doesn't wait for them. He runs. He bows to the ground, offers shade, and prepares a lavish feast, modeling perfect ancient hospitality. Abraham doesn't yet fully understand who is sitting at his table. One of these visitors is the Lord, about to speak a promise of life, a miraculous child for Abraham's 90-year-old wife. At the exact same time, he is preparing to annihilate an entire civilization in the valley below. In Sodom, the catastrophic end was preceded by an afternoon that felt entirely permanent. 12 hours remain. As the visitors look out toward the valley, God reveals the immense outcry against Sodom. Hearing this, Abraham steps forward and does something no human being in the biblical record had done before. He argues with the Creator. Abraham makes an audacious plea, asking if God will sweep away the righteous along with the wicked. He proposes a number. Suppose there are 50 righteous people in the city. Then, stepping carefully, he bargains the threshold down to 45, then 40, 30, 20. He finally stops at 10. At every single number Abraham proposes, God immediately agrees. If he can find even that tiny minority of good people, he promises to spare every single man, woman, and child in the entire city for their sake. When Abraham stops at 10 and goes home, a devastating silence falls over the narrative. The threshold was set at the absolute lowest number Abraham dared to speak, and the city will still fall short. God was not hovering over the valley scanning for an excuse to bring down fire. He was actively searching for a reason to save it. The city's survival relied entirely on a righteous minority that Sodom had already systematically eradicated. 6 hours remain. The 2 angels arrive at the gates of Sodom in the evening light. Lot, Abraham's nephew, is sitting in the city gate, a formal position of municipal authority. But when he sees the strangers, he doesn't welcome them with joy. He is terrified. He forces them into his home and bolts the heavy door, desperate to hide them from the streets. Compare the 2 meals of this day. Abraham hosted his guests in the open air, unhurried and generous. Lot serves his guests in suffocating dread, listening to the sounds of the city gathering in the dark. One table sits in peace. The other hides from a society that preys on outsiders. With 4 hours remaining, the threat arrives. The text specifies that the entire male population, young and old, from every neighborhood, surrounds Lot's house, violently demanding he hand over the strangers. The mob at the door was the final, violent symptom of generations of internal rot. This is a scroll of the ancient Hebrew text of Ezekiel, and it explicitly records the historical verdict against the city. The prophet writes that Sodom's guilt was pride, excess of food, and prosperous ease, combined with an absolute refusal to aid the poor and needy. They had taken immense economic prosperity and turned it into organized predation against the defenseless. As the mob surges forward to break down the door, the angels reach out and strike every man in the crowd blind. But the blinded men do not scatter. They do not fall back in terror at the divine power that just removed their sight. Instead, they exhaust themselves in the dark, still groping for the door, desperately trying to attack. That physical blindness mirrors their spiritual reality. The society had become so addicted to its own cruelty that it literally could not stop itself, even when struck by the hand of God. 3 hours remain. Lot runs into the pitch-black streets to warn his future sons-in-law to flee the city immediately. They listen to his frantic warning, and they laugh. To them, the old man sounds like he's making a ridiculous joke. The sky is perfectly quiet. The streets are familiar. They have deals to close and money to make when the sun comes up. We convince ourselves that because judgment didn't fall yesterday, it certainly won't fall tomorrow. We mistake the quiet momentum of our daily routine for a guarantee of safety. Dawn breaks. The sky looks completely ordinary. The countdown hits 0. The angels tell Lot to take his family and run, but facing undeniable death, Lot hesitates. He lingers in his house, unable to let go. The messengers of heaven do not wait. They physically seize Lot's family by the wrists, forcibly dragging them beyond the city walls. The text calls this an act of the Lord's compassion. When time is completely up, mercy stops being a gentle, open invitation. It becomes a forced extraction from a building that is already collapsing. The sun rises fully on the earth, and the sky tears open. A targeted rain of fire and sulfur obliterates the cities, the valley, and every living thing growing on the ground. In an instant, a bustling, prosperous civilization is turned entirely to ash. Given one final command to escape to the hills and not look back, Lot's wife turns her head toward the burning valley. The text suggests a deeper internal conflict. While the angels pulled her physical body from the city, her heart remained tied to its comforts. Lot's wife illustrates the lethal weight of old attachments, the danger of turning back toward a culture God has already marked for destruction. Hours later, Abraham returns to the quiet hillside. He looks down at the valley where 2 great cities had stood the night before. All he sees is dense smoke billowing up from the land, like the smoke of a furnace. The ruins of the plain carry a message that has echoed for 4,000 years. Silence from heaven is not acceptance. Deep economic prosperity can easily mask total moral bankruptcy, and the illusion of normalcy will always be the most dangerous deception of all.